Think you're tough enough to hang with the Vikings? Think again. Within 24 hours of landing in the 9th century Scandinavia, you'd be begging for a time machine back to your cozy modern life. The Viking Age wasn't just about epic raids and heroic sagas, it was a brutal existence that would break even the strongest among us. Let's walk through why your inevitable downfall would happen faster than you can say, Valhalla. You wake up in a Viking longhouse, and immediately you know something's wrong. The air is thick with smoke from the central fire pit. There's no chimney, just a hole in the roof that lets in as much cold air as it lets out smoke. Your eyes are already watering and you haven't even tried to breathe properly yet. The temperature inside hovers around 40 degrees Fahrenheit on a decent day, even with the fire burning. Outside, it's a bone-chilling 20 degrees Fahrenheit, and that's considered mild weather. Vikings didn't have central heating, insulation, or even glass windows. Those romantic movie scenes of cozy Viking homes? Pure fantasy. You're basically camping in a wooden tent during winter, except the tent is full of smoke and 20 other people. The smell hits you like a physical force. While Vikings were actually more hygienic than Hollywood suggests, they bathed weekly on Lagerdagur or bathing day and prized their grooming tools, the longhouse still reeked of wood smoke, cooking odors, and the inevitable funk of close-quarters living. Your modern nose, accustomed to air fresheners and ventilation systems, would be in sensory overload within minutes. Time for your first Viking meal, and it's going to be rough. Forget your Instagram-worthy breakfast bowls. Vikings started their day with porridge made from barley, oats, or rye, often mixed with whatever preserved food survived the winter. The bread is dense as a brick and coarse from stone-ground flour. Vikings ground grain with stone querns that added literal grit to every bite. Your modern teeth, softened by processed foods, would struggle with bread that Vikings considered perfectly normal. While ergot contamination wasn't the regular occurrence some suggest, when it did happen, entire communities could suffer from the fungus's psychoactive effects. Meat? If you're lucky, you'll get some dried fish that's been hanging in the smoky longhouse for months, or perhaps some preserved pork from the autumn slaughter. Fresh meat was seasonal, abundant after successful hunts or raids, but scarce during the long winter months. Most protein came from whatever the sea provided, preserved through smoking, salting, or fermentation techniques that would challenge modern palates. The Vikings did consume fermented fish, but not the surströmming that modern Swedes know. That particular delicacy wouldn't be developed until the 16th century. Still, their fermented fish preparations were pungent enough to make your 21st century digestive system, pampered by preservatives and proper refrigeration, rebel violently. Nature calls, and in Viking times, nature answered with a resounding, "Figure it out yourself." Forget indoor plumbing, toilet paper, or even privacy. Vikings used various sanitation methods depending on location and season. Outdoor latrines, waste pits, and designated areas that provided minimal shelter from the elements. In winter, these facilities became frozen challenges. Imagine trying to answer nature's call while bitter winds bite at exposed skin, all while using whatever was available for cleanup. Moss, smooth stones, scraps of cloth, or simply your hands. The wealthy might have had wool or linen scraps, but these were precious commodities not easily wasted. The areas around these facilities carried legendary stenches. Even by the standards of people who lived alongside livestock, waste management was a constant challenge. During harsh winters, when digging new pits was impossible, waste disposal became a community nightmare that wouldn't resolve until spring thaw. Personal hygiene meant washing hands when water was available and unfrozen. While Vikings understood basic cleanliness better than many realize, they had no concept of germs or disease transmission. Their version of hand sanitizer was whatever clean water they could find, if they could find it. Think your job is demanding? Viking daily labor would have you crying for workers' compensation within minutes. If you were a male Viking, your options were farming with Iron Age tools, fishing in treacherous northern waters, or crafting weapons and tools with basic forges. Farming meant working soil that was workable for maybe 5 months of the year, using wooden plows pulled by oxen if you were prosperous enough to own them. Most Vikings relied on human-powered tools, spending 14-hour days coaxing crops from ground that spent half the year frozen solid. Every day of decent weather was critical for survival. Fishing meant venturing onto North Sea waters in sophisticated but open vessels. Viking fishing boats like the Fimbering were marvels of clinker-built construction designed for the challenging North Atlantic conditions, but they offered no protection from waves, wind, or freezing spray. While some Vikings could swim, their seafaring lifestyle made it practical. Falling overboard in winter waters meant almost certain death from hypothermia. For Viking women, daily life meant managing households that functioned like small factories. You'd be spinning wool, weaving cloth, preparing and preserving food, caring for children, and maintaining the home fires. Due to high infant mortality rates, Viking women faced the constant heartbreak of losing children, with demographic patterns showing fewer surviving offspring than the large families they attempted to raise. Feeling sick? Viking medicine was a mixed bag of practical knowledge and dangerous misconceptions. Vikings understood some effective treatments. They knew honey worked well for wound care due to its natural antiseptic properties, and they had practical knowledge of herbs for various ailments. But they also believed illness could stem from supernatural causes, leading to treatments that ranged from helpful to horrifying. While trepanation, skull drilling, was known in various ancient cultures, evidence for widespread Viking practice is limited. Though when it did occur, it was performed with stone or iron tools and no understanding of infection control. Infection treatment included both practical and dangerous approaches. Cauterization with hot iron was used for serious wounds, often causing more damage than healing. However, their use of honey and various herbal remedies showed sophisticated understanding of natural antiseptics and pain relief. For internal ailments, Vikings relied on herbal remedies that could be genuinely helpful or potentially deadly. They brewed medicines from plants that modern science recognizes as having therapeutic properties, but also used toxic compounds that could cause more harm than the original illness. Dental problems were handled with the extraction tools of the time, basically pliers and determination. Without anesthesia, tooth extraction was an ordeal that often led to infection and sometimes death. Dental abscesses were serious threats in an era before antibiotics. Break a law or get accused of breaking one, and you'd face a legal system that combined surprisingly sophisticated elements with brutal enforcement. Viking society operated on complex honor codes and legal assemblies, but justice could still turn deadly quickly. Serious crimes might result in outlawry, being declared outside the law's protection. This meant anyone could kill you without legal consequences, essentially making you a walking target. During harsh winters, outlawry was virtually a death sentence. Trial procedures included oath swearing, where your reputation and that of your supporters could determine innocence, and occasionally trial by ordeal. These ordeals tested whether the gods favored your cause, usually through painful tests that left permanent damage regardless of the verdict. For the most heinous crimes, Vikings described elaborate execution methods in their literature. The famous blood eagle appears in sagas, though scholars debate whether this was actually practiced or remained a literary symbol of ultimate vengeance. Either way, the fact that they conceived such methods tells you everything about their approach to justice. Viking law did recognize compensation systems. Blood money could resolve many disputes without violence. However, if someone died because of your actions, even accidentally, their family had rights to revenge or payment that could bankrupt you or spark generational feuds. Nightfall brought temperatures that would challenge even modern outdoor enthusiasts. Vikings had effective cold-weather clothing by the standards of their time, layered wool, fur, and leather that provided decent insulation, but nothing approaching modern winter gear. Viking homes lost heat rapidly once fires died down for the night. Families slept together for warmth and, yes, sometimes brought smaller livestock inside to prevent them from freezing. Your bedroom companions might include goats or chickens, adding their own aromatic contributions to the already complex indoor air quality. Frostbite was a real threat, and Viking treatments for it often caused additional tissue damage. They understood the need to warm frozen limbs, but their methods of rapid rewarming by fires could worsen the injury. Even inside the longhouse, water containers froze overnight during the coldest months. Vikings woke to frost-covered walls and their own breath visible in the frigid air. Modern humans, accustomed to climate-controlled environments, would struggle with even one night in these conditions. And if you somehow survived the daily grind, there was always the expectation of joining expeditions. Vikings didn't just raid, they were traders, explorers, and settlers who spent months at sea in vessels that were engineering marvels but passenger nightmares. Viking longships were incredibly sophisticated for their time, shallow-drafted, flexible, and capable of both river and ocean travel. But picture spending weeks crammed into one with 30 other people. No privacy, minimal food storage, and constant exposure to North Atlantic weather. These vessels had no cabins, toilets, or protection from elements. Seasickness was constant for the uninitiated, and North Atlantic storms could appear with little warning. Vikings navigated by sun, stars, and remarkable seafaring knowledge, but expeditions still disappeared regularly, their crews dying of exposure, starvation, or shipwreck in waters that could kill within minutes. Combat, when it came, was brutal and personal. Viking warriors fought with axes, swords, and spears in close quarters where survival depended on training, strength, and luck. While they did use some ranged weapons like bows and javelins, most fighting happened face-to-face, with no medic standing by and no tactical support beyond your shield brothers. By now, you'd be desperate to return to your modern life with its heated homes, medical care, legal protections, and basic human rights. The Viking Age wasn't a time of glorious adventure. It was a daily struggle against cold, hunger, disease, and violence that claimed most lives well before what we'd consider old age. Vikings weren't superhuman warriors. They were people brilliantly adapted to conditions that would break most modern humans within hours. Their toughness came from having no choice but to endure circumstances that we'd consider extreme hardship, combined with sophisticated survival knowledge passed down through generations. The Vikings were genuinely impressive. Their shipbuilding, navigation, legal systems, and craftsmanship were remarkable for their time. They established trade networks spanning continents and explored oceans that challenged even modern sailors. But their daily reality was absolutely brutal by contemporary standards. So the next time you complain about your Wi-Fi being slow or your coffee being too cold, remember, you wouldn't last one day as a Viking, and honestly, that's probably for the best. Modern life might seem boring compared to Hollywood's version of the Viking Age, but boring beats fighting for survival in a world where winter could kill you and a simple infection might be your last. The Vikings earned their fearsome reputation through necessity, not choice, and you'd want no part of that necessity.